Now, if you're using out-of-process state management, one of your big advantages or pros here is scalability. Because if we're saving it out of process, that means we're storing it on the server side somewhere else besides on our server, which means we can easily add more servers to our farm because each of these farmers can go to the same place, or each of these servers, not farmers, and see the information. And if we lose one or even two, so what? We've still got our data out here and it's protected. So it survives server failures. Now the cons, obviously it's slower. It's got to go out to this remote location, or it's got to cross a memory resource area, and that's called marshalling. You got to marshal those calls. There's more administrative effort involved. Somebody's got to set up that remote storage location. We're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes in the next video. And then let's talk about client server side. If we save our state management information on the client side, then we're processing on the client, which means we're using their resources, their CPU time, their disk space, their memory, and all that stuff's being used. Now, if you're talking hundreds or even thousands of users to a web server, then you're saving quite a lot of resources by sticking this stuff on the client side, managing it there. We've got some cons here, though. Number one is support, because usually on the client side, we're talking about cookies, which means that we're dependent on whatever browser that user's using to be treating cookies in the way that we expect them to. Okay. Also, a lot of browsers, the clients can go in, users, and turn the cookies off. And then durability is a problem. We plant a cookie out there, and then the user goes and erases the cookies or removes the cookies. The client uses a lot of resources, and it starts to erase these things to reclaim disk space. And you can go on the internet now and download all kinds of freeware to keep cookies stripped off your machine because of the way some people and companies have abused cookies in the past. And then let's take a look at server-side state management pros and cons. These are roughly the same as in process or out of process. It depends on where you're storing it. If you're doing it in process, then you're susceptible to server failure. If you're doing it out of process, it's going to be a little slower, but it's a little safer and so forth. And so that's pretty much going to be the same as in and out of process. So I won't go through those again for you. But now, in review, I want to go back and let's talk real briefly about where we started in this video. Now, if you remember, there's two types of state management. We can store our state management information in process on the same server or out of process on a different server or in a different database. Two choices for methodology. We can use cookies or we can use cookieless, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will. And then we have two choices for where we're going to store the state information, either out on the client side or on the server side. And so those are your options. Now, as we go through the rest of the video, we're going to talk about the different aspects of these things. And in the next video, we're going to talk about issues with server-side state management, because you have still a few more options if you're going to go server-side. And so I'll see you in that video, and we'll cover that.